This is every Counter-Strike major explained in 14 minutes. DreamHack Winter 2013, the very first CSGO major. Held in Jönköping, Sweden with a $250,000 prize pool funded by Valve, this tournament established the blueprint for what majors would become. CS 1.6 and Source had their diehard fans, but CSGO was the new kid struggling for acceptance. Valve putting up $250,000 was their way of saying this game mattered. 8 teams battled it out, and the 2 Swedish powerhouses, Fnatic and Ninjas in Pajamas, met in the finals. NIP had been the undisputed kings of CSGO up to this point, going on a legendary 87-0 map win streak on LAN. But Fnatic, led by the aggressive Opper JW, had other plans. The final went to 3 maps, and when the dust settled, Fnatic took it 2-1. NIP's era of dominance was officially over. The 87-0 streak was a distant memory, and a new Swedish dynasty had been crowned. EMS won Katowice 2014, the first major held outside of Sweden, and boy did it deliver. The Spodek Arena was packed with over 10,000 screaming fans, proving that CSGO could fill arenas just like traditional sports. The Polish crowd had one team they cared about, Virtus Pro. The legendary Polish squad featuring Taz, Neo, Pasha, Snacks, and Bieli were the home team, and the pressure was immense. Could they perform in front of their own fans? The answer was a resounding yes. VP bulldozed through the bracket and met NIP in the finals. NIP were looking for redemption after their loss at DreamHack Winter, but it wasn't meant to be. Virtus Pro dismantled them 2-0, and the Polish crowd absolutely lost their minds. Pasha, Taz, and the rest of VP became instant legends in their home country. This remains Poland's first and only major title, ESL 1 Cologne 2014. 3 majors, 3 finals appearances for NIP, but still no trophy. After losing to Fnatic and then VP in back-to-back finals, people were starting to question if NIP could actually close out a major. The Swedish rivalry was at its peak, the Lanxess Arena was electric, and this time, NIP showed up when it mattered. They defeated Fnatic 2-1 to finally claim their first major title. But what nobody knew at the time was that this would be the last major trophy NIP would ever win. This was the peak. From here, it would be a slow, painful decline that would eventually see them struggling to even qualify for majors. DreamHack Winter 2014. This major is infamous, and not for good reasons. The French squad LDLC, featuring Shocks, NBK, Kyoshima, Happy, and Smiths, were on a tear. They made it to the quarterfinals and faced off against their Swedish rivals Fnatic. What happened next is one of the most controversial moments in CSGO history. Fnatic discovered a pixel walk boost on Overpass that allowed them to see over half the map from a single position. They used it to come back from a massive deficit and win the map, taking the series and advancing to the finals. The boost was clearly an exploit, but technically not against the rules at the time. After the match, the backlash was so severe that Fnatic made the unprecedented decision to forfeit, allowing LDLC to advance instead. LDLC went on to face NIP in the finals and won 2-1, but the boost controversy overshadowed everything. This was the beginning of the French era, but it came with an asterisk that nobody asked for. ESL 1 Katowice 2015. After the disaster at DreamHack Winter, Fnatic had something to prove. They weren't cheaters, they weren't villains, they were the best team in the world, and they were going to prove it the right way. JW, Flusha, Krims, Olofmeister, and Pronax were playing some of the best Counter-Strike anyone had ever seen. They steamrolled through the tournament and met NIP in yet another Swedish derby final. This time there was no controversy. Fnatic won 2-1, clean and dominant. This was peak Fnatic. Many consider this roster to be the greatest version of Fnatic ever assembled, and it's hard to argue against it. ESL 1 Cologne 2015. Fnatic were on a mission. After redeeming themselves at Katowice, they wanted to cement their legacy as a dynasty. Cologne would be the proving ground. They met Team Envious, the rebranded LDLC squad, in the finals. Envious were no slouches, featuring Happy, Keo, NBK, Apex, and the French opping legend Kenny S, who had just joined the team, but Fnatic were simply too good. They steamrolled Envious 2-0, securing back-to-back major wins. That's 3 major titles in less than a year. The Swedish scene was on top of the world, and it seemed like nobody could challenge Fnatic's throne. This was their peak, their dynasty, their era. DreamHack Cluj-Napoca 2015. The French were hungry for revenge. After falling short at Cologne, Team Envious came back with a vengeance. They bulldozed through the bracket and faced off against Navi in the finals. Navi, featuring a young superstar opper named Guardian, were legitimate contenders, but Envious were playing at a level that was hard to match. They took down Navi 2-0, and the French finally had their redemption. This would be the last major win for a French team for 8 years, marking the end of the French golden era. MLG Columbus 2016. This major changed everything. For the first time, a major was held in North America, specifically at the Nationwide Arena in Columbus, Ohio. The storylines heading into this event were incredible. Fnatic were looking to reclaim their throne, Navi with Guardian were looking for their first major, and a relatively unknown Brazilian squad called Luminosity Gaming were the dark horses that nobody saw coming. Led by the tactical mastermind Fallen and Coldzera, Luminosity had been slowly climbing the ranks, but few people expected them to actually win. The semifinals is where this major Major became legendary. Luminosity faced off against Team Liquid on Mirage. Liquid were up, looking strong, and had a real chance to make NA's first major final. Then coldzera hit the shot, a jumping AWP double kill that defied all logic and physics. It's been replayed millions of times and remains the single most iconic moment in Counter-Strike history. Luminosity would go on to face Navi in the finals and win 2-0, claiming Brazil's first major and announcing themselves as a legitimate threat. This was also the beginning of Team Liquid's curse as the eternal bridesmaid, always close but never quite there. ESL Cologne 2016. Luminosity Gaming had rebranded to SK Gaming due to contractual issues, but the roster remained the same. They ran through the tournament and met Team Liquid in the finals. Liquid were desperate to prove they belonged, but once again, they fell short. SK dismantled them 2-0, and Liquid's curse deepened. This tournament also marked the end of Simple's time on Liquid. After this event, he returned to Navi, beginning what would become a nearly 6-year quest for his first major. The Brazilian era was in full swing, and SK looked like they could dominate for years to come. E-League Atlanta 2017. Astralis, featuring Device, Dupree, Zypex, Jerby, and Glaive, had been knocking on the door for years. They were talented, tactical, and disciplined, but they had a reputation. Chokers. The pressure of semifinals would break them, but Atlanta was different. They made it through to the finals and faced off against Virtus Pro, the legendary Polish squad looking for their second major. The match went to 3 maps, and for the first time, Astralis didn't choke. They won 2-1, and Device finally got his first major win after years of heartbreak. But this wasn't the dominant Astralis we'd come to know. They were still figuring things out, still ironing out the kinks. Few people realized that this was just the beginning of the most dominant dynasty in CSGO history. PGL Krakow 2017. Gambit Esports, a CS team that barely qualified for the major, went on the most insane underdog run in Counter-Strike history. Led by the veteran IGL Zeus and featuring young talents like Adrian Hobbit and Mo, Gambit played with absolutely zero pressure. They had nothing to lose and everything to gain. Astralis, the defending champions, fell. Fnatic fell. Immortals, the Brazilian runners-up, made it to the finals thinking they had this in the bag. But Gambit had other plans. The finals went to 3 maps and Gambit took it 2-1. The Cinderella story was complete. This was proof that on any given day, at any major, anything could happen. Gambit were never favorites, but they were champions. ESL Boston 2018. This is the major that North America will never forget. Cloud9, featuring Skadoodle, Stewie 2K, Tarek, Automatic, and Rush, were playing in front of a home crowd at the TD Garden in Boston. The atmosphere was electric. North American Counter-Strike had always been the butt of the joke. We can't compete with Europe, we choke in big moments, we'll never win a major. Cloud9 went on an incredible run and met FaZe Clan in the finals. FaZe were the super team, the roster built with unlimited money featuring some of the best players in the world. On paper, FaZe should have won easily, but Counter-Strike isn't played on paper. The series went to 3 maps, and the final map, Inferno, went to overtime. The Boston crowd was deafening. Every round, every kill, every clutch was met with screams that shook the arena. In the end, Cloud9 won 2-1, and North America finally had their major. The Boston Major will forever be remembered as North America's greatest moment in Counter-Strike. Face It London 2018. Astralis came into London with a new roster, having replaced Kierby with Magisk, and they looked different. Every smoke thrown had a purpose. Every flash was calculated. Every position was held with precision. In the finals, they faced Navi, who were fresh off some strong performances and looking to finally claim their first major. It wasn't even close. Astralis dismantled Navi 2-0, and it looked effortless. This was the beginning of the Astralis era. They introduced tactical Counter-Strike that other teams simply couldn't match. IEM Katowice 2019. After London, Astralis went on to win basically everything, and this major was their chance to prove that London wasn't a fluke. The Finnish underdog squad ENCE made a magical run to the finals, capturing the hearts of fans everywhere with their easy for ENCE meme and their explosive playstyle led by Alu and Sergej. The crowd was behind them. Everyone loves an underdog, but Astralis didn't care. They dismantled ENCE 2-0, securing their second consecutive major. Other teams were trying to copy their playbook, but you can't replicate years of chemistry and practice. StarLadder Berlin 2019. Astralis came into Berlin looking for their 3rd consecutive major, something that had never been done before. Standing in their way in the finals was Avangar, a CIS squad that had shocked everyone by making it this far, but this was a mismatch. Astralis crushed them 2-0, and the dynasty was complete. 3 majors in a row, 4 majors in less than 2 years. Device now had 5 major wins, more than any player in history at that point. Zypex was Mr. Clutch. Glaive was the mastermind. Dupree and Magisk were the perfect role player. The Astralis era was suffocating, beautiful to watch if you appreciated tactical CS, but absolutely demoralizing if you were trying to beat them. Then the world stopped. COVID-19 hit in early 2020, and for the first time in CSGO history, there were no major. The StarLadder Major that was supposed to take place in Rio was postponed indefinitely. The scene went online with players competing from their homes, and everything felt different. Tournaments were happening, but without the crowd, without the stage, without the pressure, it just wasn't the same. When majors finally returned in 2021, 2 full years had passed, and the landscape had completely changed. Astralis had declined. New rosters had formed, and everyone was hungry. PGL Stockholm 2021. The Avicii Arena in Stockholm was packed with fans who had been starving for live Counter-Strike. For nearly 6 years, Simple had been called the best player in the world who had never won a major. He'd come close before, making finals and semifinals, but the trophy had always eluded him. Na'Vi looked strong heading into Stockholm, and they bulldozed through the bracket to face G2 in the finals. G2 were formidable opponents, but this was Simple's time. Na'Vi won 2-0, and Simple was finally a major champion. The monkey was off his back, and the Counter-Strike world celebrated one of the game's greatest players finally getting the one trophy that had eluded him. PGL Antwerp 2022. FaZe Clan had been called the best team to never win a major for years. They'd made finals before, they'd had super teams before, but the trophy had always slipped through their fingers. Kerrigan, the Danish IGL, had been to multiple finals with multiple rosters and had come up short every single time. Antwerp was looking like FaZe's best shot in years. They made it to the finals and faced off against the defending champions Na'Vi. The match went to 2 maps and FaZe won 2-0. Kerrigan, the eternal bridesmaid, was finally a major champion. The curse was broken, and FaZe could finally call themselves major champions. IEM Rio 2022. If you thought Boston was loud, you hadn't been to Rio. The Brazilian crowd at IEM Rio was unlike anything Counter-Strike had ever seen. Over 11,000 screaming fans packed into the Jeunesse Arena, and they were there for one reason: to cheer for their home teams and boo everyone else. The atmosphere was hostile, intense, and absolutely electric. Furia, Brazil's last hope, went on an incredible run that had the entire arena shaking. Standing in their way in the quarterfinals was Na'Vi and Simple. The Brazilian crowd turned Simple into the villain. Every time he got a kill, boos rained down. Every time he died, the arena erupted in celebration. Simple, being Simple, leaned into it. He was gesturing to the crowd, feeding off the hate. Na'Vi eliminated Furia, and the dream was over. The tournament favorites were teams like FaZe, Heroic, and Na'Vi. But there was one team that nobody wanted to see win: Outsiders. The Russian squad, playing without their organization's branding due to the ongoing conflict in Ukraine, had made it to the finals against all odds. They faced Heroic, and the Brazilian crowd did everything they could to support the Danes. But Outsiders didn't care about the boos, the chants, or the hostile environment. They played their game and won 2-0, claiming the major trophy in front of a crowd that desperately wanted them to lose. Blast Paris 2023. After NVUs at Cluj-Napoca in 2015, French Counter-Strike had fallen off a cliff, but Vitality had been building something special. Led by Zaiwu, widely considered one of the best players in the world, Vitality were ready to bring a major home. And where better to do it than Paris? The Accor Arena was packed with French fans, and the energy was incredible. Vitality made it to the finals and faced off against Gamer Legion, the underdog squad that had shocked everyone with their run. But this was Vitality's moment. Zaiwu put on an absolute masterclass, and Vitality won 2-0. The French prodigy finally had his major, and France finally had their trophy. The Paris crowd went ballistic, and French Counter-Strike was officially back. PGL Copenhagen 2024. The first major in the Counter-Strike 2 era. Na'Vi were looking to cement their legacy, but this time without Simple. The Ukrainian superstar had been benched, and Na'Vi had rebuilt around a new core. Copenhagen was their chance. They battled through the bracket and met FaZe Clan in the finals once again. The series went to 3 maps, and it was a war. Both teams traded blows, but in the end, Na'Vi came out on top 2-1. The scene was evolving, with younger players pushing out veterans, and this major was proof that even the greatest players could be replaced. Perfect World Shanghai 2024. The first major in Asia, and Perfect World, Valve's partner in China, went all out for this event. Team Spirit, the Russian squad, came in as underdogs but played with confidence and discipline. Led by their 17-year-old phenom Donk, who was putting up insane numbers and making plays that seemed impossible for someone so young. They made it to the finals and faced FaZe Clan yet again. The series went to 3 maps, and Spirit won 2-1, with Donk picking up the MVP award and announcing himself as the next generation of Counter-Strike greatness. This major marked CSGO's global expansion and showed that the game could thrive anywhere. Blast Austin 2025. Vitality came into Austin looking to defend their status as one of the world's best teams. They made it to the finals and faced the Mongols, a squad from Mongolia that had captured hearts around the world with their incredible underdog run. The Mongols were the feel-good story of the tournament, but Vitality were on a mission. The series went to 3 maps, and Vitality won 2-1. Zaiwu cemented himself as one of the all-time greats with his second major, and Vitality looked poised to dominate the CS2 era, just like Astralis had dominated CSGO. And that's basically every Counter-Strike major. 22 tournaments, 12 years, 1 trophy.